Hi everyone, Andy from ARM Procurement Advisors. We help property managers and investors and developers buy stuff for their properties better. Just wanted to talk real quick about the Rent Controls and Tenant Protection Act that passed in New York State on June 14th. The intent that was advertised for these laws was that it was going to increase the quantity of affordable housing on the market, make it easier for tenants to find places to live, and make it harder for property managers and landlords to evict them for no reason. Evictions don't happen for no reason. Very infrequently. Property managers and landlords love tenants who are good tenants that pay their bills, that have jobs to pay their bills, or other sources of income to pay their bills, and who do so on time. That's the best type of customer you can have, is the customer who pays your bills. So, I'm not going to get into the politics of this. I'm only going to talk about what this is going to do to affordable housing inventory and availability, quality of units that are available on the property, then what this means for companies that are providing both materials and labor to be used in these. So the easiest one to talk about is going to be the materials and labor side. So essentially, right now with these laws in place, New York State has made it more profitable for companies to invest in other states. Period. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. They have essentially raised the cost of doing business for all these property management firms that collect rents, do evictions, maintain the property. They've done their very best now to make it so it's very much a burden on those companies to make ends meet. And they've done it in a number of ways. The leases are different now, the amount they can charge for first and last month's rent and all that stuff has gone up, and now it's harder for them to recapture money they spend on capital improvements and repairs, because the rent protection law essentially says you can't raise the rent, regardless of the reason, more than a certain percentage every year. The problem with that is that the best way for a company to improve the quality of their unit is to improve the quality of the unit doing a massive renovation, and then they raise the rent to meet the quality of the market that the market will bear for that type of renovation. So if they have a rundown, dilapidated building over here that's a 4-unit or a 6-unit or even an entire apartment complex of 650 apartments, it doesn't really matter. You've got this rundown, older property, say it's from the 70s or the 80s, that would be considered a C-class property, where the rents are, on average, anywhere from $750 to $900 a month. And down the road, you've got A and B properties that are renting, that number one have more curb appeal because they're more current. They were renovated and upgraded in the late 90s, early 2000s, even as recently as 7 or 8 years ago. And they're getting rents of $11, $12, $13, $1,400 a month for similar square footage and amenities on the property. So you have this slightly dilapidated building, or set of buildings, that you can dump a certain amount of money in per unit. Say it's going to be a complete gut and reno, so bathrooms, kitchens, appliances, lighting, maybe doors and trim and molding, maybe not. It just depends on each individual unit. New floors, new carpets, the whole 9 yards. Everything is getting gutted. These companies are committing, say, $15,000, $20,000 per unit to upgrade, renovate, and the idea is to turn it from a C, getting $850 a month for rent, to a B, getting $1,100 a month for rent, or a B plus or an A, whatever. Now, the problem is that you've spent, if it's a 4-unit, you've spent 20 grand times 4, so $80,000. And you're talking about raising rent by $300 a month, $250 a month. So how long does it take you to pay off $80,000 at $1,000 a month in extra rent? 80 months. Simple math. 80 months is reasonable to recoup a massive renovation like that. The problem this law has done is it's made it so that that recoup now can't happen in 80 months because they're capping the amount that you can raise the rent at the rate of inflation plus 1.5%. So if you have a 1.5% inflation, you can raise rent 3%. So what's 3% of $850? It ain't $300. It ain't $250. That pretty much means that that renovation no longer pays for itself. So that's going to do two things. One is, those projects aren't going to happen. You're going to get that C building and that dilapidated property is going to stay a C building and a dilapidated property because, secret, real estate investors want to make money when they spend some. It's an investment. It's like the stock market. You don't put money into the stock market and then go, I really wish that that would not make me any money and that it would actually lose money. That would be awesome. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen with real estate either. So you can't... Okay, let's qualify the not making money part on an upgrade. If an upgrade, like a complete renovation, and making an extra $250 a month per unit will pay for itself in 8 years, that means you get a couple years of useful life, since most renovations and upgrades have a useful life of around 10 years, on a good side, 10 years, because of wear and tear and people moving in and out and furniture and appliances and pets and kids and dogs and all the stuff that goes into normal life. If you live in a house, or if you've ever lived in a house, you know that over time, if stuff doesn't get painted and maintained, it starts to look not so good. Cabinets get damaged, countertops get damaged, doors and walls get damaged. Floors get scratched and spilled, carpets get stained. Stuff happens. 10 years down the line, it needs to be replaced again. So if you're taking and doing a massive renovation and upgrade and you can pay for it in 8 years, that means you get 2 years where you're just going to be able to bank that money and invest in other properties or invest in that property, making it better by adding an amenity like a playground or whatever, a better laundry facility, something. If you take that upgrade and you make it so you can't get the money back for 20 years, and it only has a useful life of 10 years, you're not going to do the upgrade. So you're losing money if you do. Which means you're going to see dilapidated buildings in these rent-controlled zones are going to get paint, cleaned carpets, and some repair work done. And they're going to go from people spending $15,000 or $20,000 on materials and labor to $10,000, to $4,000, to $1,200 to shampoo the carpets and paint the walls, because they're not going to spend the money that they can't recapture. So that's going to reduce money going into contractors' pockets, which they all have families to feed and businesses to run and gas to put in their trucks and their tools. You're going to see less money going to your local supply houses, your plumbing supply, electrical supply, lumber yards, your box stores. Even though everybody says all that money goes to their corporate office, wherever it may be, every one of those stores has 100 families in it making money. You're taking basically money out of the pockets of 100 families in the local area, if nothing else, to make this happen. And what's going to happen is these units are going to degrade in quality. A C is going to stay a C or go down. An A and a B, if you can't raise the rent to afford the upgrade, you're not going to upgrade them again in 10 years. You're going to leave it and do the paint and the cleaning, and it's going to eventually become a B, and it's going to become a C, and it's going to become a slum. That's what's going to happen. And that's what New York State just ensured would happen with the laws they passed. Tenant quality of life is going to go down. Now, I say available unit quantity will go down because in some cases, on really bad buildings, it's going to be cheaper to let it sit vacant than it is to gut it, rehab it, and put people in it. Because you can't afford to pay for the work that needs to be done to make it livable. So you just leave it as a zombie house or a zombie building or a tenement or a dump. And it's going to degrade the neighborhood, it's going to impact quality of life, and it's just going to suck out loud for everybody involved in that area. Now, it's going to make it, this law also makes it harder for tenants to get in because they made it harder to evict, and they also made it so that they can't use prior evictions from other properties as a reason to deny tenancy. They can't charge a first and last month's deposit, and they can't charge a double security deposit for people who are right on the cusp with bad credit scores or past criminal records that maybe happened 20 years ago, but they haven't been able to hold down a job because of it or something like that, and they're not a threat, they're not a danger to anybody, but they can't get a unit rented. So now those people where you could take them for a double security deposit or double security plus first and last, you can't do that anymore. You can just take a security deposit not in excess of the rent for a month. Stuff happens. If you damage a house or a building, there's a really good chance it's going to cost more than a single security deposit to pay for that damage. As a property manager, which I'm not, I don't own property, and I do not manage property. Full disclosure. As a property manager, looking at that from a business standpoint, I'm not going to take anybody that endangers my profits, which are this big, just because somebody in government thinks it would be really nice to just let people live in your place for free. Doesn't happen. People invest in properties to make money, and they don't make a lot of money because it's all financed with other people's money, whether it's the bank, whether it's private investors. They have bills to pay, taxes to pay, overhead demands to meet. If they can't make a profit, they're not going to do business in New York. We're already seeing it in New York City, where massive firms that financed massive renovation projects and rehabs are now pulling out of those projects, telling their contractors they're all laid off, telling their building material suppliers that all the product that they committed to is not being purchased now, and they're walking away from those projects because it doesn't make financial sense to finish them anymore. And that's going to get worse across the state. Your inner cities are going to become slums and ghost towns, and you're going to see the suburban areas that don't opt in to the rent control provisions are going to flourish, and you're going to call it white flight, and there's going to be all sorts of accusations of stratification, of earning levels of people, income levels, stratification, and the school districts are going to feel the impact, and the neighborhoods are going to feel the impact, and crime rates are going to spike in the areas where the houses, because that's the pattern. So these people in the government in Albany decided to pass this law that affects the entire state, and what's going to happen is they're basically guaranteeing a reduction of inventory, lower quality homes for low-income families, and the eventual degradation and slum creation of their inner cities. They have just gone backwards 30 years in progress in one fell swoop because people are just going to go invest in Tennessee. They're going to go invest in North and South Carolina. They're going to go invest in Texas. They're going to go anywhere they can make a profit. People do not want to deal with the crap in New York as it is, and they just guaranteed that more people are going to walk away from New York State and spend money where it's easier, including people who live in New York. People who are living here now will not invest in their own neighborhoods. They will go elsewhere because they can make a profit. At the end of the day, people are investing to make a living or to pad their retirement. All of these things involve personal investment, and nobody in their right mind just goes, I'm just going to take this $30,000 I've got and I'm going to put it into something where I guarantee that that $30,000 becomes worth $10,000 in 5 years. Because that's a good idea. No, that's not how it works. They go, I have $30,000 and I want to make it $60,000. And I'm going to take that 60 and I'm going to invest it over here. And I'm going to create a couple of jobs. And I'm going to turn that 60 into 120. And I'm going to take that 120 and I'm going to invest it and I'm going to create a couple more jobs and support a couple more families. And then I'm going to turn it around into $250,000, and I'm going to take that and I'm going to invest it over there, and then I'm going to retire on it and draw off of it until I die. But it ain't going to be in New York. It's going to be somewhere where they can actually make money. Maybe I'm going too far with this. I don't think so. As a business person, if I was going to invest right now as a property manager or a landlord or a investor of some kind coming in to either be a hard money lender or to buy a property myself and pay somebody to fix it up or fix it up myself, I'm not going to do it in New York because it's too darn hard to make sure I'm going to be able to make money. I'm going to go with a sure thing in a state that actually seems to want to encourage business to come to it, which hasn't been New York in a really long time and probably never will be again. Like my videos, comment, let me know what you think. Everybody's upset about this in the industry. The news isn't reporting on what kind of impact this is going to have long term to business in the state, and I really think it should. But it's not popular. And that sucks because it's going to impact a lot of people in the long term, and it's going to create a lot of problems down the road that they don't even want to talk about. But that's New York. So, like, comment, share. I'll see you next time. Thanks.